Every year, 480,000 Americans die due to smoking-related illness. The chief of those is cancer. 480,000 people every year. Every 65 seconds in America, someone is hearing that sound as their loved one is passing away. Every 65 seconds. I'm going to read 3 pieces that I've brought together just to give us a little bit of perspective on a couple of things. The first is the Declaration of Independence, the opening of it. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The second comes from Abraham Lincoln, the Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we're engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We've come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here, thus far, nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. The last part that I have is Duties of American Citizenship from Theodore Roosevelt. He says, of course, in one sense, the first essential for a man's being a good citizen is his possession of the home virtues of which we think when we call a man by the emphatic adjective of manly. No man can be a good citizen who is not a good husband and a good father, who is not honest in his dealings with other men and women, faithful to his friends and fearless in the presence of his foes, who has not got a sound heart, a sound mind, and a sound body, exactly as no amount of attention to civil duties will save a nation if the domestic life is undermined, or there is a lack of rude military virtues, which alone can assure a country's position in the world. In a free republic, the ideal citizen must be one willing and able to take arms for the defense of the flag, exactly as the ideal citizen must be the father of many healthy children. A race must be strong and vigorous. It must be a race of good fighters and good breeders, else its wisdom will come to naught, and its virtue be ineffective. No sweetness and delicacy, no love and appreciation of beauty in art or literature, no capacity for building up material prosperity can possibly atone for the lack of great viral virtues. The first duty of an American citizen, then, is that he shall work in politics. His second duty is that he shall do that work in a practical manner. And his third is that it shall be done according to the highest principles of honor and justice. Of course, it's not possible to define rigidly just the way in which the work shall be made practical. Each man's individual temper and convictions must be taken into account. To a certain extent, his work must be done in accordance with his individual beliefs and theories of right and wrong. To yet a greater extent, it must be done in combination with others, he yielding or modifying certain of his own theories and beliefs, so as to enable him to stand on a common ground with his fellows, who have likewise yielded or modified certain of their theories and beliefs. There's no need for dogmaticizing about independence on the one hand or party allegiance on the other. There are occasions when it may be the highest duty of any man to act outside of parties and against the one with which he himself has hitherto identified. And though there may be more occasions when his highest duty is to sacrifice some of his own cherished opinions for the sake of the success of the party, which he, on the whole, believes to be right, I do not think that the average citizen, at least in one of our great cities, can very well manage to support his own party all the time on every issue, local and otherwise. And at any rate, if he can do so, he's been more fortunately placed than I have been. On the other hand, I am fully convinced that to do the best work, people must be organized. And of course, an organization is really a party, whether it be to a great organization covering the whole nation and numbering in millions of adherents, or an association of citizens in a particular locality, banded together to win a certain specific victory, as, for instance, that of municipal reform. These three things caught my attention, and these three things talk to us about things that we should do as citizens, as people who belong to organizations. That ugly sound that you've heard throughout this entire reading is heard every 65 seconds because someone's loved one is passing away, because someone could have gone to a vapor product which could have saved their lives. It's time for all of us to do something about it. Here's something a little more to the point said by Mr. Phil Basardo.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Art. And it's frustrating. And as an experienced vapor and as somebody who's done research, into this and understanding the safety of it, like you, like Dimitri, imagine how we feel when we see one of those stories or hear or read one of those stories. You're like, what can I do? What can you want to reach through the screen and choke somebody? It's so infuriating what you see. And, one of the questions that I always ask myself is, from the Royal College of Physicians, they're estimating, we'll say the 95% number, 95% safer than smoking cigarettes, right? Let's say that number wasn't 95, which is a very, very high number, by the way. That's an extremely high number. Let's say that number was only 5%, okay? 5% safer than smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
If you have the potential to save 5% of the lives of smokers, wouldn't you support that?
Right.
Media?
Right.
Wouldn't you support that? Healthcare? Wouldn't you support that? Cancer societies? Right? But why don't you? We're talking about 95%, not 5%, 95% safer. Why is this not being supported? Why are we finding obstacles and roadblocks every step of the way? And you know what it keeps coming down to? In my mind, everything, money.
Absolutely.
All about money. They don't give a shit about your health. public health. They don't care. What they care about is continuing to make money via taxes and via health care. Okay? Because keeping people sick, not curing people, and treating people and keeping them sick is big, big money. Imagine if cancer were to be cured right now. Right now, I have in this bottle right here the cure to cancer. What would happen to our society if that were to happen?
Yeah.
Imagine the economic breakdown that would occur. Imagine the number of people who would be out of jobs. Imagine the number of hospitals that would have to close down instantly, right? I don't like to be a conspiracy theorist, and I never was one until I got involved in this, and until I started seeing that this thing that we're doing has the potential to save so many lives, and yet we're coming up with roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, fight after fight after fight. Why? I think it's because of money.
Yeah.